Alright friends, welcome back to another video on building multi-purpose Laravel and Livewire application. And in this video, I'm going to show you how we can create application settings using Laravel and Livewire. So before we start, let me give you the demo of what we're going to build on this video so that you will have idea. And over here is a menu called settings, and once I click that, we are redirected to settings page. And in this page, I have created few application settings to show you. Here we can change site name. So if I change this to, let's say, Cloven, and then click on save changes, if I refresh the page, you see that it got changed over here. We can change site email, we can change site title. Let me change this as well, because currently the title is admin LT. Let's change this to multi-purpose Laravel and Livewire. Let me fix this. Okay, click on save changes. If I refresh the page, and it got changed over here. Now another interesting thing is collapse sidebar. Now if I click over here, sidebar will collapse. If I uncheck, sidebar will not collapse. So before changing that settings, let me show you one thing. Now if I click over here, the sidebar got collapsed, right? But now if I refresh the page, and it got disappeared, it is back to the original state, right? So over here I have created one settings called collapse sidebar. Now if I click over here, it got collapsed, and if I save the changes and then refresh the page, it got collapsed, right? The settings are saved. Now if I go back to another page, and it is still collapsed. See how cool this is. And throughout this video we'll see how we can build such functionality. So let's get started. Just a quick note that recently I'm working on one course called SPA with Laravel Livewire. So if you are interested in building single page application with Laravel Livewire, then go ahead and enter your email address over here so that you will get notified when this course is launched. And I will put this website link on the description. Go ahead and check that out. Now let's get back to the video. Okay, so let's start by creating the component first. So let me open up the terminal. And let's do PHP audition make livewire inside of admin/settings update setting. Okay, now the component got created. So let me go back, and first of all let's change this icon over here. So let's go to aside.blade.php, and over here let's change this to cog. Okay, now this icon got changed. Now when we click on this menu, we need to redirect the users to the settings page. So let's do that. Let me copy everything from here, as we have already done that. Okay, and the route is admin.settings, and if the request is admin/settings, then make this link as active, otherwise do nothing. And now let's create this route, and which is inside of admin.php. Okay, over here let's create the route, get route, and the name of the route is settings update settings class. Okay, and the route name is admin.settings. So now let me save this, refresh the page, and it is saying that invalid route action update settings, and it is not update settings, it is just setting. Let me save this, go back, and we don't see that error. Let me click on settings, and we are on settings page. Perfect. Now let's add a form over here. So let me grab this form from here. Let me inspect it, and let me edit as HTML. Let me copy this. Now let me go to update settings.blade.php file, and over here let's create a div with a class of row, and inside this div let me paste everything. Now if if I go back and refresh the page, and we see that design, but we need to remove this, so let's remove that. Let me indent it first, and let me copy this top section, this one, from update profile. So let me do that. Let me go to update profile, and let me copy this section over here. Let me go back to settings page, and let me paste that. Okay, let me add one div, which is my main div, and let's indent it. Close this div, close that section as well, and finally the main div, and let's indent it. Now if I go back and refresh the page, we'll see this section. So let's change the name as well. Let's change this to settings, and then settings. Now let me remove other unnecessary parts. This one, this one, this one. Let me refresh it, and that is gone. So now let's change these fields as well. So over here it will be site name, and let's change this to site name. Input type, let's say text, and enter site name. Similarly, let me copy this site email, input type email, and let's send this to site email, enter site email. Let me paste that, and the site title, enter site title, and this will be text. Sorry, paste it. This will be footer text, footer text, enter footer text. And the final one is checkbox, input type checkbox. Okay, and this will be sidebar collapse. We don't need placeholder. Now let me remove this password and file input as well, and this one as well. Refresh it, and we got those changes, but this is too big, so let's fix that. Let me remove font control class from here, and we see that. Let me add break over here, so we'll see that on a new line. Instead of site name, it will be sidebar collapse. Let's change this button as well to save changes. Let's add icon over here. With a margin right of 1, and let's change this text to general settings. Okay, everything looks good. So now the remaining thing is to create a settings table. We can do this in various different ways, but I will show you the simple one so it will be easy to understand. So let's create a table called settings. So let me open terminal. Let me do PHP audition make model called setting with migration. Now let's go to create settings table, and over here let's create those fields. String site name, let's make this as nullable, and default none. Let's do the same for site email as well, for site title as well, and footer text, and the final one is table with the boolean, and this is sidebar collapse, and let's make this default as false. Now let's do PHP audition migrate, and that got migrated. Now we need to save the entered values to our database, so let's do that. To do that, let's go to update setting component class, and over here let's create a method called update setting. Let's do die and dump here. Now let me go back to update settings.blade.php file, and on the end input type is submit. Over here we can do wire submit prevent the default behavior, and then we'll be calling the method called update setting. Okay, when we press this button type is submit, so we'll submit the form, and on form submit we are calling the method called update setting. So on our update setting component class we have this method, and we are doing die and dump here. So let me refresh and try this, and we see here, which is perfect. So now let's get those values which are entered here. So for that, let's create a public property called state, which is array, and back to blade file, and over here let's do where model the default to state dot site name. Let me copy this, state dot site email, state dot site title, and then state dot footer text, finally state dot sidebar collapse. Okay, now let me fill out this form and click on save. It is saying that should be email, so let me save it again, and we are calling that method. Now let's do die and dump this state. We submit it again, and it is currently empty. Let me refresh it and try it again. Okay, and we got those values. Let me fill out this form, and we got those values, which is perfect. Now the thing remaining is to save those data to our database, right? Now let me go back to component class, and over here we can simply do setting create with this state. Okay, and the settings got imported. And now if I try this again, and we are getting mass assignment exceptions. So to fix this, we need to go to setting.php model. Over here, let's create our fillable array with those fields, and the fields that are fillable are site email, site name, site title, footer text and sidebar collapse. Okay, and now let me refresh it again, click on save, and let me go back to database and the table settings, and we see those values, which is perfect. But there are a few issues, so let me first of all let's display the success message over here. So let me go back to update settings, and over here let's do this dispatch browser event, and the event name is updated. We'll send the message called settings updated successfully. Now let me save this, and it is saying settings updated successfully. If we go back to our database, we'll see a new row, right? But actually we don't want to make that happen because there will be one settings row only. So to fix that, over here let's create a variable called setting, and setting first, and let's check if there is a settings, and we will update, otherwise we will create, right? If there is settings already, then we will update those settings, and else we'll create a new settings, right? So let me copy this, actually cut this from here and paste it over here, and for update we can do setting update with this state. Okay, now let me remove this from here. Let me go back, refresh the page, let me add those values, click on save changes, and it got saved. Browse, we have one row. Now if I refresh the page and then click on save changes, it is saying settings updated, and it got updated over here instead of creating a new row, which is perfect. So there is one issue again. If I refresh this page again, those data are disappeared, so we need to show those data which are on our database. So let's fix that. And to fix that, currently this state is empty by default, so let's create a mount method so that we can fill that state. On our mount method we can do this state equals setting first to array. Okay, now we'll be filling this state with these values. So now if I refresh the page and we get back those values, if I change this to save and we get that, and if I refresh that, we are processing those to our database, and which is perfect. Now let's use these settings values throughout our applications. So we can do this in various different ways, but let's use helpers here. So let's create a helper file inside of app called helpers.php. Okay, actually let me show you how I want to access those values. So let me go to app.blade.php, which is the main layouts file. Over here we'll be using the site title, right? So I want something like setting, and we'll be passing the field name, the best field name, and the field name is, let's say, site title, right? So now if I refresh the page, we'll get this error called undefined function called setting. So let's create this function as a helper so that we can use this on multiple places. So let me go back to our helpers, and over here let's create a function called setting, and for now let's return title as, and then we'll be receiving the key as well. So let me go back, and it's still we will get that issue because on our composer.json, we need to auto load these files. Over here, we need to auto load that files, and which is inside of app, and then helpers.php. Now one thing I need to do is composer dump auto load, because we changed this composer.json file. Now let me go back to browser and refresh the page, and we are still getting the error. Let me go back to our helpers.php file, and we misspelled this. Let's change this to setting, and we don't get that error, and we see this title over here, which is fine. So instead of returning title, let me minimize everything. So instead of returning title from here, let's do settings. Let's create a variable with setting first, and then full return setting and the key. Okay, actually this will return setting, and it is empty because we are dying down on this title. So let me remove this for now, and this title is over here, this one, right? So let me go to update settings, and over here to show, let me do die and dump setting site email. Okay, and now we get that email, right? But let me go to helpers, and let's do die and dump setting, and we get that setting, right, with those values. So over here we are accessing those key that is passed, and we are returning the value. And we can make this one line using first and then key, and the key here is setting site email, right? So let's return this from here, and we get that. Now let me remove this die and dump, and we are back. Before we continue, let me tell you one thing, that if we use the setting helpers throughout our applications, then there will be performance issue to choose. So there will be performance issues because we'll be executing multiple different queries, right? To show you, let me install Laravel debug bar. So over here we can simply do composer require. Let me open up terminal, paste it, and it got installed. Now if I go back to browser, refresh it, and we got this debug bar, and here you notice that there are 3 queries running, and we are running the same queries 2 times. And now if I use that settings helper on multiple places, so let me show you that. Let's use on our footer over here. Let's do setting and then footer text, right? And we increase the queries to 4, which is not good, right? We are executing the same query 3 times. Now if I just copy and paste this multiple places, if we use this on multiple places, like we can change this to site email or something else. If we use that on multiple places, then we'll be executing 8 different queries, where 7 different queries are related to settings, right? So we need to fix this issue. We can fix this issue using Laravel cache. So let's do that. Let me go to helpers.php file, and over here let's create a variable called setting, and over here let's do cache, and then remember forever, and we have to remember the key called settings. Okay, and if this key is not found, we'll run this closure. inside this closure we can return setting first, and then over here we can return setting with the key that we passed. Okay, now if I save this, refresh the page, see we have 8 different queries. Now if I refresh the page, we are back to 3 queries because we are executing that first time. If I refresh the page again, and we are back to 2 queries, which is perfect. If I refresh it again, we are back to 2 queries as well. And we fix this issue. Finally, let's work on the interesting one, which is sidebar collapse. If it is checked, then we need to collapse this sidebar, right? Because currently the sidebar is collapsed, but it is not collapsed, right? So let's work on this part. Let me show you one thing. Now if I inspect it, and then now if I click over here, it got collapsed. One thing you should notice that it is adding a class called sidebar collapse. Let me show you one more time. And that sidebar collapse got disappeared. It got removed. If I click on, and it got added called sidebar collapse, right? So let me close this. Let me go to main app.blade.php file, which is the main layouts file, and on body let's add the class called sidebar collapse. Okay, and it is collapsed, right? And if we go to different pages, it is collapsed. Now if I remove this, and this is not collapsed. So the main thing here is we need to make this dynamic, right? And to make that dynamic, we can simply do setting and then sidebar collapse. If it is true, then we will show sidebar collapse class. Otherwise, we will do nothing. Let me remove this, and if I refresh the page, we'll still get that issue, though sidebar collapse is enabled, right? Because over here we are storing this as 0 and 1, but here over here we are checking that one conditional as true or false. So to fix this, we need to go to settings.php model, and we need to cast that value to boolean, right? So let's create a protected property called cast, and we want to cast sidebar collapsed to boolean. Now if I refresh the page, and that changes did not got affected, right? Actually, while using cache, remember one thing, that we'll get those old values that are on cache, not those changed values, right? Now if I change this to global, save changes, refresh the page, see here we still get the previous value, right? So to fix this issue, while saving those settings values, let's forget the cache key. So we can simply do, let me go to update setting, and let's forget the cache key while after updating or creating, right? So over here we can do cache and then forget, and we want to forget the key called setting. Okay, and this got imported. Now let me go back, and now if I click on save changes, see we have global over here, we have this title. Now if I refresh it, and it got fixed, but actually the title was here, so let me change over here, and the site name is, let's say, multi-purpose Laravel and Livewire. Click on save changes. Now if I refresh the page, and it got changed over here, it is showing starter, so let's fix that as well. Let me go to app.blade.php. Let's use this from setting site name, okay, and it got fixed. Now if I unclick this, click on save changes, refresh the page, and we are back where the sidebar is not collapsed, right? If I change this, click on save, the sidebar is collapsed. If we go back to different pages, it is still collapsed, which is perfect. And finally, let's make it more interactive, something similar to this. First of all, let me remove this and save changes. Similar to this, once we click over here, it got collapsed, and once we click back again, it got back to the original state. So instead of changing from here, let's change this from here. So user will know what this setting is doing, right? If someone click on check, and we will collapse the sidebar. If someone click on uncheck, and we will not collapse the sidebar. So let's do that part, and then we'll close this video. So to do this, let me go to update setting, and over here let's create a JavaScript. Let's push our JavaScript to the stack called JS. Create a script tag. Okay. So over here we need to listen for the change event on this checkbox, right? So if we go to checkbox, we have an ID called sidebar collapse. So we can use that. Let's do sidebar, and we'll get that element, and we can listen for the change event using on change. And as a second argument, let's pass this as closure, and let's say alert changed. Now let me go back, change this, and it is saying changed. Uncheck it, and it is saying changed. Perfect. Now we just need to add a class to our body called sidebar collapse, right? So let's do that. Let's grab the body, and then instead of add class, let's do toggle class, and we want to toggle class called sidebar collapse. Okay, let me go back, refresh, click on check, and it got collapsed. Unchecked is back to previous state. Now this is more interactive, and user will know that what this setting is doing. So now let's do sidebar collapse is true. Click on save changes. If we go to next page, and it is collapsed. So this much for this video. I hope you learned something from this video, and in the next video in our settings we'll use bootstrap switch instead of this checkbox. So stay tuned, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel, as I will be uploading the videos like this. And till then, have a great time, and I will see you on the next one.